Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Close. It is Monday, January 27th, 3:45 p.m., and I don't think anyone's going to forget Monday, January 27th, because Monday, January 27th, 2025 was the day that Nvidia lost over $600 billion of shareholder capital, down 17% on the day. Folks, when I left, I think the stock was at 119.5. About 3 hours later, this stock has not budged. It only went lower, 118. At one point, it hit 116. I did not see the 116. That was about an hour and a half ago. But it did hit 116.70, which was the lowest of the day. It looks like it's going to end in the next 15 minutes at around 118, 117. And Nvidia is down 17% on the day. First of all, before we get into it, how's everyone feeling? How's everyone doing? Hopefully everyone's keeping their mental health and everything else in check. At the end of the day, this is something I don't think anyone expected, but it came kind of out of nowhere. I don't want to say it's a black swan event because it's not really a black swan for the market. The broader market is actually okay. Like, yeah, everything's down, but it's not down to the point where it's like August 5th type of levels of down. But if you're heavy in the semiconductors, if you're heavy in energy infrastructure, if you're heavy in data center technology, yeah, it's one of those days. It's a crappy day. And obviously it's not fun seeing some of these stocks down. But Nvidia, the big one that's got hit, down 18% right here. So we got a lot to talk about, a lot to dive into. I want to get into kind of some of the research I've done, what I'm thinking about this situation, how everything is played out. Before we get into Nvidia, because we do have an official response by Nvidia, real quick, just around the market. We have Palantir down about 5%, IWM down 1%, Microsoft down 2%, Vistra down 28%. That is an energy data center play. GE Vernova, another energy play, that's down 20%. SMCI basically kind of following along on GPU demand, given they provide servicing for GPUs. They're down 13%. Tesla down about 4 or 3% after going up to about 406 and going green. Vertiv, another data center energy infrastructure play, down 28%. IONQ, Quantum down about 4%. Some green is an Enphase, rotating from nuclear. Speaking of nuclear, Oklo down 25%. Uber's a little green. ServiceNow, some of the SaaS names are green. CRM is green. Mark Benioff was tweeting today about how AI is the only thing that matters in AI when it is data, not the actual GPUs and the models. So some of the SaaS names going green, Verizon going green, TFC going green, Schwab US Dividend Equity Fund is going green. So a lot of the value stocks are going green. S&P 500 down about 1.58%, pretty much what we had during the day. I think at the lows, it was at 592, now at 598, almost closing in on 6,000, which is not that bad. Robinhood, 47.74, down about 6.2%, but not too bad either, given this was at 52 on Friday, and it was at 38 a couple of days ago. Apple, 3% on the day, so that's one of the only Mag 7s that's really green. And then, speaking of Mag 7s, you had Apple that was green, and you had Meta that hit all-time highs, 655.45 on Meta. Market deciding that the open source LLM revolution might be here, and if that's the case, one of the key winners is going to be Meta, going up green right now. Okay, so let's talk about what Nvidia said. They put out a ChatGPT type of press release. It really wasn't that much. This was not the type of response the street wanted. As soon as they gave this response, the stock actually continued to go down. But this was what they said, 2 paragraphs. Deepseek is an excellent AI advancement and a perfect example of test time scaling. Deepseek's work illustrates how new models can be created using that technique, leveraging widely available models and compute that is fully export control compliant. And I think that's them kind of trying to save their ass right there, saying, hey, whatever GPUs they used, it's legal. It's not illegal. So I think they're trying to be very politically correct right there, saying that whatever GPUs the Chinese DeepSeek company used to be able to build this model, it's export compliant. It is not like they got illegal GPUs, which I don't know. I still think that's up in the air. A lot of CEOs have said that Elon said today the only way they could do this is by having H100s, which technically were legal in 2023. So theoretically, that still might be okay. They then said inference requires significant numbers of NVIDIA GPUs and high performance networking. We now have 3 scaling laws, pre-training and post-training, which continue, and new test time scaling. That last sentence right there, or that first sentence of the last paragraph, inference requires significant numbers of NVIDIA GPUs and high-performance networking. To me, that's telling us to read between the lines and infer that China only did this because of accessing a ton of GPUs, even if those GPUs were legally accessed, they needed a ton of them. That's what I'm getting from this. This other sentence about 3 scaling laws, and no one cares about that. And really, no one cares about the first paragraph. The only paragraph, or the only sentence that matters in this 2-paragraph statement is inference requires significant numbers of NVIDIA GPUs and high performance networking, which to me is them saying, hey, you need a lot of GPUs to get the job done. I wish they could have just more clearly said that. I wish Jensen could come out and kind of just say, this is not that serious. We need a ton of GPUs to make this happen. One of the reasons the stock might still be down right here is because the market is thinking this response is a ton of bullshit, quite frankly. The market might be thinking, all right, are you actually telling us that you need a ton of GPUs, or are you not? Can you be a little bit more specific here in terms of how you think Deepseek did this? Or don't tell us all this academic language about power scaling laws like, hey, do you need a lot of GPUs to build this? Yes or no? That's the question. And Nvidia did not, in my opinion, clearly say yes or no in that statement. Now, they may think it's clear, but the broader market via its sell-off of Nvidia continuing to take it down 18%. And, maybe they're waiting until earnings. Maybe they're going to let the market figure it out. Maybe Nvidia doesn't feel like they need to justify themselves. Maybe Nvidia is still trying to figure out the best way to communicate this, right? This is happening all of a sudden. Maybe they're consulting with a bunch of their PR team and experts, all that stuff. But nonetheless, the market was not impressed by what Nvidia had to say. It held at 116, currently at 118, but still down 18%. So there you go. That's what Nvidia's response was. Bitcoin is at 101, and Bitcoin above 100,000 is great, but the crypto stocks are getting pretty much destroyed as well. Coinbase down 7%, CleanSpark down 11%, MicroStrategy down 3%. MicroStrategy did bottom at 322 earlier in the day, getting a little bit of a recovery. I think that's when Bitcoin was around 98,000. Marathon down 8%, Hut 8 Mining down 24%. That's another Bitcoin miner. Iran Energy. I don't know why this thing's down 24%. Oh, well, part of it has to do with energy, and if the market's thinking we don't need as much energy, which is insane that the market's thinking you don't need that much energy. And on Friday, they couldn't get enough of energy, but that one's down 24%. Cypher Energy as well, down 23% right now. There you go. That's what we're looking at in the context of Nvidia. Here's what Mr. Dan Ives had to say about this entire situation.
Today's sell-off just a buying opportunity for some of these names. Right now, let's talk about, Dan, the epicenter of all of this. And you've been a notable bull on many of these companies, many of the technologies that are at the center of the meltdown today. Does this worry you?
I mean, in my view, it's a top 3 buying opportunity that I've seen in the last decade for tech. And the reason I'm saying that, I spent the whole weekend talking to tech executives, CIOs, individuals that I know that are going down the sort of AI arms race or going through use cases. In no way of really 25 companies does this change their sort of plans, and a lot of these could be 7, 8, even upper 8-figure type budgets. I just continue to view this as it's a model, and a lot of the details I think still need to be vetted out in terms of 6 million. Do they actually have the H100s, how they actually built it? But this is something we're going to look back on, and I think the street and the market got this way wrong. In no way does it dent our bull thesis. That's what we've been telling clients really since the weekend. These are the times you own these names.
Dan, not all of the companies at the center of the sell-off today are necessarily affected the same way. Chip stocks, Nvidia, Kelly mentioned it, $500 billion in market cap lost. That's more than the size of ExxonMobil. That's roughly the size of United Health Group in terms of an entire company lost in market value. Some are affected more than others. Mega cap technology, not as much so across the board as, say, Nvidia per se. When this is a buying opportunity, how much of a buying opportunity and how specific do you have to be?
Well, first on Nvidia, that continues to be, I think, the golden goose in terms of what Jensen and that company are ultimately. There is one chip in the world. There's one GPU that's fueling AI, and it's Nvidia. And when you think about these build outs, when we talk about the enterprise, the $2 trillion of AI CapEx next 3 years, that doesn't change from Deepseek. We're talking about 1/1000th of ultimately the build out that you're going to need for a lot of these enterprise use cases. You look at names like Palantir, you look at the hyperscalers. I could argue with inferencing, if you actually think costs are coming down, it's actually bullish for even some of the software players, names like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Oracle, and others. I just think this is when you look at NVIDIA, I think we sit here 6, 9, 12 months from now and look at this as a moment. It was a golden buying opportunity, and in no way changes our bull thesis for where this is all headed.
So Dan Ives is bullish. By the way, guys, let me know if my audio sucks. Audio should be okay, but let me know if the audio is kind of choppy. We got 4 minutes until the market closes, but Dan Ives kind of coming out with a simple thesis. Again, he doesn't make it too complicated. His argument is this is a buying opportunity. And either you believe in this as a buying opportunity or you don't. Did I buy today? Yes, I bought. So what did I do today? I bought 50 shares of Nvidia. I sold 2 puts at 110. I sold a couple puts on Hoodie at 47 for 228. Got paid about 373 from the market on that. So I have some Hood puts. I sold some SoFi puts at 1350 for 228. And then I bought Nvidia. So 50 shares of Nvidia, a couple puts of Hood, a couple puts of SoFi, and then a couple puts of Nvidia, all of them expiring in about a month. And Nvidia, that's another reason I'm not buying even heavier into Nvidia, because I have puts at 110. Probably will buy another 50 shares tomorrow. We'll kind of see how this plays out on its second day going into all this red. But I bought 50 shares at 120 today, 120.5 in the morning. And if it gets to 110, I will be assigned on another 200 shares. If not, then I'll probably be able to add another 50 shares as well. Did not buy any leaps today. But if you are bullish on certain stocks, today is the day to buy leaps. I mean, depending on, your time frame, all that stuff. But like when things are red, that's when leaps lose a lot of their value, their premium value. And so that's when you get discounts on a bunch of these names. Today was a day to sell puts. Today was a day to buy leaps if you're interested in those. Today was not a day to sell calls because your call premiums got kind of destroyed. It was a day to close out some calls if you have them, because those are probably up anywhere from 30 to 40% based on whatever stock you sold it on. Apple right here, 3.23%. SMR, another nuclear name, down 27%. NNE, Nano Nuclear Energy, also down 25.6%. Then Oklo got hit as well with energy down 25% now at $31. Let me know in the chat if you bought anything today, particularly if you bought Nvidia. So you can put in the chat what you guys bought. I think a lot of you in the market open did say that you were buying Nvidia, which is fair. I mean, look, let's just call it 20% down. It's 17% down, but let's round up. 20% down on Nvidia. I don't think we actually haven't seen that since March of 2020. That hasn't happened in a long time. So, I mean, like if you don't buy that dip and you're bullish Nvidia, what more of a dip are you waiting for, right? Unless, and this is what I posted on Twitter today, and this is just like, this is what I believe is happening so far. This is not really a dip in my opinion, even though I bought the dip, but I don't know if I bought a dip. I feel like this is more of a paradigmatic narrative shift on the company. Because for Nvidia to not recover throughout the day, not even a little bit, and for all these analysts, which by the way are confused. You guys think we're confused? I read a lot of the equity research reports. Bernstein's bullish, JP Morgan's bearish. Like it's not like there's a unison kind of argument from the analyst community that, oh, this is absolutely a buy the dip. This is the stupidest thing ever. There are some analysts that are like, actually, no, we got to do some more research to see how important Deepseek is and how much they were able to create outside of just having compute. And, either those analysts are going to conclude that there is a decent amount of compute that was needed or there was not, but they are still confused is the point. And I think the lack of uncertainty or the lack of certainty because of all the uncertainty is probably why Nvidia is experiencing the pain that it's experiencing today. And either you believe in it or you don't believe in it, and that's going to be the decision on if you buy or not. I see a lot of VRTs in the chat, a lot of Nvidia, see some SoFis. Matt says, I bought a bunch of Nvidia leaps. All right, if you're ultra bullish, call options on Nvidia today lost a lot of their value, so that is not a horrible buy right here. And I see a lot more of the semiconductor names of people that were buying these as well. All right, here we go, 4 p.m. We still got a lot of stuff to talk about. Monday, January 27th, the day Nvidia fell 17%. The stock market is now closed. All right, we got through the day. Volume on Nvidia, 790 million shares. There's got to be a day where they had this much volume, maybe during the initial run up back in 2023, but I don't remember a day where they had almost 1 billion shares traded. I mean, this is incredible. Pretty damn incredible. So 790 million shares for Nvidia, 118.42. Nvidia ends the day down 16.9%. Nvidia has lost 645 billion of market cap today, down from about 3.53 trillion to 2.9 trillion. SoFi ends the day down 10.27%. Meta ends the day at all-time freaking highs. Absolutely exceptional for Meta. If you've got Meta, congrats. It went the opposite direction of Nvidia, up 1.91% to end out the day 659. Microsoft ends the day down 2.14%. SMCI ends the day down 12.52%. Tesla down 2.32%. Vertiv down 29.8%. ServiceNow up about 1.4%. Enphase was up a little bit of rotation away from the nuclear stocks into some of the solar stocks. CRM, Salesforce up 4% on the day. PayPal actually went green, 1.27% on the day. And see, that's weird, right? Like PayPal should not be green on a cataclysmic August 5th 2.0, but it's not August 5th 2.0. It's like Nvidia and the semiconductors judgment day type of a day, and everything else is like getting a little bit of a hit. But you got some stocks like PayPal that are like, yeah, things are fine. We're up 1.27% because at the end of the day, Nvidia is not affecting them to that degree. In terms of all the semis, they all took it on the chin today. Dell down 9%, Micron down 11%, Lam Research down 5%, Marvell down 19%. That one took a big hit. TSM down 13%, Qualcomm actually down 0.5%. Qualcomm was actually okay. Broadcom was down 17% following Nvidia. ASML down 6%. Intel was down 3%. SMCI again down 12%. AMD down 6.3%. And then Nvidia down 16.3% currently right now. Yeah, after hours, pretty much all of them are green, but they're green by about 0.5%. So it's nothing too crazy. After hours volume tends to be low as well. But they are all a little bit green after hours. In terms of the Mag 7, we ended red on Google. Wow, I didn't even see Google down 4%. I actually didn't look at Google all day. So that was down 4%. Amazon was up on the day, 0.3%. That's weird. Went the opposite of Google. Nvidia was down 16%. Nvidia actually now at 119 after hours. Tesla was down 2.3%. Again, Meta was up 2%. Microsoft was down 2%. And then Apple was up 3.25% of the day. Some of the money rotating out of chips into Apple. Someone did say that the market hates Apple's AI so much that they don't even classify Apple as an AI stock. And that's why it didn't go down with the rest of the market. I thought that was kind of funny. How much did I lose today in my portfolio? All right, everyone put in the chat if you feel comfortable sharing. I am down $37,000. $37,000, $176.35. So there you go. I think at the low point today, though, it was like 40 or 50, but we ended the day down about 37 grand. What's your take on Tesla post ER? Well, we still have to get ER, right? We still got to get the earnings. I don't know, dude. I think Elon's going to pump Optimus. I just have a feeling that's what he focuses on. But these numbers are going to be very important to kind of figure out. I think there was an equity report today basically saying that they are very scared. You know, Elon said in the last call that they're going to do 20 to 30% vehicle deliveries growth, which was another reason Tesla pumped going into the election. There were some reports today saying there's no way in hell after the EV mandate is gone that Tesla's going to do 20 to 30% vehicle delivery growth. Remember, this year they did like, I think 0% growth, or they actually grew a little less. If they had beat by 10,000 in the Q4 deliveries, they would have grown by at least 1%. Elon guided for 20 to 30% last quarter. Is that going to happen? I don't know. And if they don't guide for that, then, you know, that might end up being a little bit of a hit on Tesla. But the qualitative elements of that company are going to have to be more than just the numbers going into their earnings. Marcus is down 38K. Michael's down 32K. Andrea is down 0 because she went to cash in late December. Not bad. There you go. That's why having cash is not the worst thing in the world. Jersey Guido's down 21K. Eric's down 74K. Alfredo's down 4K. Daphne's down 55K. This is what it means to be an investor, right? Just like, yeah, down 30, 40K. Again, I was saying this in the morning, but none of your friends, none of your family members could handle the volatility of some stupid Deepseek model with a whale emoji that I still think is stupid looking, ruining a really nice January, you know? Like, no, like most people can't handle that volatility, but this is what it means to be an investor. You have to be able to stomach this stuff. Okay, a couple things. First of all, in the options market, the Hood $50 call is getting a ton of inflow. So April 17th, Hood $50 call got $4 million of premium today. So it does look like there were some people taking advantage of the dip on Hoodie today. and they were buying those $50 calls expiring on April 17th very heavily, further proving this idea that the market believes Hood is going to have support at 50, definitely going to potentially have support after earnings, given the market's assuming they're going to have a pretty incredible earnings and pretty good guidance going forward. So about $3.9 million of premium going into Hood for that $50 call. On top of that, here's something that I found out today. All of us probably already knew this, but I saw this for the first time from Deepseek's actual website. They collect everything. So Deepseek collects your IP, your keystroke patterns, your device info, and they store it all in China. And they write right here, the personal information we collect from you may be stored on a server located outside of the country where you live. We store the information we collect in our secure servers located in the People's Republic of China. There is no way in hell this model should become a mainstream model or should become a model that even touches any corporate company in the United States of America. Like, there's just no way. There's no way. At least on TikTok, the data, although a lot of it was going to China, there was a deal back in 2020 that a lot of the US data would be stored in Oracle, and the CCP still had control over the algorithm, but the data was at least in the United States. This thing, the data just straight up is stored inside of China. And so, like, anything you type in, especially if you ask it any personal questions about your life, financial questions, yada, yada, all of that stuff's being memorized and stored inside of their servers. So, I don't know why anyone would want to use it on a daily basis. B, even if it's open source, all of that data still is stored somewhere. So if you run it locally on your computer, you've just given the CCP access to everything in your computer. And then C, it's pretty damn scary that this thing is getting as popular, even though it has these types of harsh ramifications for people that use it. Now, again, the headline is not that it's a Chinese product. The headline is that the Chinese were able to come up with a product that's as good as OpenAI. But I think the question that no one really has an answer for, and Nvidia really didn't do a good job at clarifying in their press release, is did they have tons of GPUs? Did they not have tons of GPUs? And is this replicatable again without the amount of compute that companies like Microsoft and Meta are spending? There's just, I don't know. There's just not enough good answers right now currently that we're getting. Now, here's a take from one of my friends who's an engineer. He's a engineer at Berkeley. His name is Justin. And he's to me, he's going to be like the next little Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, this guy is like just smart as hell. Here's what he wrote today. If there is a time for you to buy Nvidia, I assure you it is right now. I have researched and experimented with Deepseek AI being an open source model. You still need compute locally to run the models. People are overreacting to the news, and in my opinion, Nvidia should not be this low. Some of the Deepseek models are computationally intensive. Their benchmarks perform well, but people don't understand that you still need tons of compute to achieve high-grade AI tasks. Sure, Deepseek makes low-level AI work easier, but who's going to take care of the extremely intensive tasks? Nvidia as a Mag 7 company is going nowhere. Their moat in the GPU space is too distinctive and large to go anywhere. If you bought some puts on Nvidia, congrats. If you bought some calls, tough luck. Hopefully you hit some soon. Regardless, spam the buy without fear. Now, again, take his words with a grain of salt. This is a sophomore. He doesn't have the biggest experience in the world when it comes to investing. But he is a friend of mine, and he is deeply involved in the AI space. He's built multiple AI products. He's been using LLMs for the past couple of years now. And his argument is, look, I ran the model locally, and this shit is like, it's cool, but it is not going to replace the highly intensive computational tasks that are required with GPUs. And as a result, it's very difficult to imagine that NVIDIA goes away. And so that's a perspective from at least someone who's in the field working with these LLMs every single day. You know, his perspective is just NVIDIA should not be this low simply because of a Deepseek innovation. That's not really an innovation given how much computational infrastructure is still needed to power the AI demand that is coming for more data. So that was his take on what we're seeing right now. Bitcoin 102, we did get 102K right here on Bitcoin. I tried to get Jose, guys. He could not join. Today was the one day he couldn't make it. Tomorrow morning, he'll be on the show and we'll get his take. For those that don't know, Jose is one of my friends, and he is a YouTuber in the semiconductor space. So tomorrow morning, we'll get his take on what he thinks. I think his take, from my understanding of reading some of his tweets, is that a lot of this is bullshit and that there's no way in hell Deepseek is dethroning NVIDIA. But he'll give a little bit more clarity on it later tomorrow. Can you show us Tom Lee from earlier? Was Tom Lee on today? I must have missed it. Was Tom Lee on? Oh, he was on. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to Tom Lee. And let's get his take on everything going on.
Share what he is watching is Fundstrat's head of research, Tom Lee. welcome back. It's good to see you.
Great to see
Especially
you,
on this day. How are you?
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
Well, markets don't like uncertainty. They like visibility. They like moats. So markets are a little scared today. To me, it's an overreaction. I mean, Nvidia decline is the worst since March 2020. And we know that ended up being a huge opportunity for investors. So I think it's not a fun day, but I'd be looking at this as an opportunity.
I've been thinking about, the people who've been coming on today of all sort of professions, whether it's a strategist or investor or whatever, analyst, defending all this or saying it's overblown. How do we know? What if it's not? And if it isn't, what does that mean?
We don't know if it's overblown. You're right. But this is the nature of technology. I'd be personally surprised if Nvidia became Betamax in the past week. I mean, that's really would be the kind of change that would be required to really justify selling Nvidia here. And given, I think, the need for AI because of global labor shortage and Nvidia chip dominance is still strong, unless a new model emerges that doesn't require GPUs entirely. I'd say that markets just generally do buyer ready aim. I mean, I think it's hard to know, though.
I won't disagree with you on that. I mean, that's how the market tends to do that. But a lot of AI was sort of sold to investors on a hope and a dream, right? We haven't seen, in many cases, the ability yet to monetize all of this, or at least to have a sizable return on the investment that a lot of these hyperscalers are make tens of billions of dollars that they're pledging to spend. Doesn't that matter? I mean, what if some of that hope and dream just doesn't come to the degree that we thought, or we decide that it wasn't worth the money that we were willing to pay for it?
I mean, these are fair questions. If Nvidia was at 100 PE, I'd probably say that there's too much good news priced in, but the PE is around 30 times. I'm not sure that that's very demanding for investors. And if you look a couple years out, it's in the 20s. I don't think Nvidia is priced for perfection.
Is the market itself?
I don't think so. I mean, the 10-year now is backing off to 4 or 5, so you're still paying over 20 times for a 10-year bond. The median PE in the S&P is around 18 times.
Yeah, but I mean, because it's skewed, though, because of the mega caps, we're still like 22-ish times. So, earnings have to be really good from here on out, right? Don't tell me about multiple expansion again driving this train. You got to put up or shut up when it comes to earnings this period.
That's right. But, I've been researching companies since the early 90s, so over 34 years. I never found a PE for a high-quality company to be at 22 times, let's say for Mag 7, to be a demanding multiple. Again, I think if you're talking about price for perfection, it really has to be stocks where you have to back into the NPV of 100% earnings growth forever.
What happens if, at bare minimum, we are questioning NASDAQ stocks for the foreseeable future? Like, this doesn't feel like, oh, tomorrow everything's going to be great kind of deal. So as long as we're doing that, is there enough momentum behind some of these other areas of the market that this market as a whole can be okay?
Well, today, market breadth's actually pretty good.
Yeah, financials, healthcare, staples, they're green. Dow's up, almost 200.
That's right. Even in NASDAQ, we have stocks that are up.
Yeah, Apple, Uber, Meta, yeah.
And I think that year to date, we have 3 weeks in, and year to date, Bitcoin's outperforming, small caps outperforming financials. So I think the market does look pretty healthy. I would say it's also very encouraging that if we can close on the S&P above 5881 by the end of this week, it really solidifies that 2025 is going to be probably a double-digit gain year.
What's your favorite part of the market right now, outside of tech?
I think financials, to me, represent a pretty good fundamental case of change this year because we have a new administration, a Fed that is dovish, yields that aren't painful for banks, and at a time when it could lead to upside for capital markets activity and multiples are low. So I think financials remain our number one S&P sector idea.
I mean, because I ask you because your narrative is so levered, so to speak, to big cap tech. Your top 5 ideas in the market are Nvidia, Amazon, Meta, Google, and JP Morgan.
Yeah.
Are you not rethinking any of that?
No, at the moment, no. And even though this one day is painful, I do think markets tend to overreact. And again, unless we're on the cusp of a recession, this pullback in Nvidia is going to prove to be a buying opportunity as well.
Any Fed risk this week at all? Can they? Do you have any worries about what they could say? They're not going to do anything, we don't think, but they always say a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty going into January FOMC because last month it really caused markets to rethink the probability of a hike. But the probability of a hike for 2025 now stands at 27%. I think that's an extraordinarily high probability. I think there's a chance the Fed sounds more dovish than market expects.
Tom, we'll talk to you soon. It's good to see you as always, especially here post.
That is very surprising to me as well, dude. I saw that headline this morning. The chances for a Fed hike went up to 27%. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Where the hell did that come from? The 10-year is down on the day. 10-year just went below 4.52. So rate hikes, like I get this whole Nvidia headline is like bad. I get it. But rate hikes is pretty aggressive. I mean, dude, the headlines got so bad today on Deepseek. This was the Axios headline. Deepseek could be an extinction level event for venture capital firms. I don't think Deepseek is I don't think it's bankrupting every venture capital firm in the United States of America that invests in technology. I mean, like, it's pretty aggressive, bro. It's pretty aggressive. Shout out to Farzad right here. He says Deepseek really highlights how incredible AI is going to be in the coming months. Inference just got 95% cheaper. Insane, which is really bullish for a lot of the Mag 7 names that potentially can get more out of the current compute that they have and potentially don't have to spend as much. Now, granted, Nadella tweeted this morning essentially this idea that we're going to have to keep spending if we want to get to AGI, which means we have to keep pushing the envelope. But the point is if inference costs got cheaper, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. And it's just going to be a question how the market interprets it. Nvidia's up about 1.4% after hours. So it looks like there's some volume coming in right here. A lot of stocks are up after hours actually right now. Palantir's up a little bit. Microsoft's up a little bit. Vistra's up 1/3%. SMCI's up 1%. I guess all of them kind of following Nvidia. Maybe some people that didn't get to buy during the day, they're just checking their brokerages as they come home from work and they're realizing that Nvidia is down 17%. They're taking advantage of it. So we are getting a little bit of green that we're seeing after hours. Yeah, maybe it's Nancy. Maybe it's Nancy. By the way, did you see what the Perplexity CEO said? This is another reason where buying the dip on Nvidia might end up being, one of the best opportunities, as Dan Ives says. He says, we're going to buy more capacity to keep serving DeepSeek R1 in American data centers. Those shorting Nvidia are short-sighted. The proliferation of search agents and assistants that can reason has just begun. So now, granted, Perplexity CEO has a $9 billion valuation that he's thinking it might be in jeopardy because of DeepSeek. So he's kind of, keeping the narrative alive around Nvidia. But if you put one and one together, if he's gonna buy more capacity to be able to serve these open source models inside of Perplexity, that still is more money going to Nvidia, which ends up being a good thing, not a bad thing at the end of the day. And that's what we got. SPX closed over 6K. Did it? Did we close over 6K? Yeah, we closed over 6K, dude. In the midst of all the pain that we had today, S&P 500 still closed above 6,000, which is why this pain was really isolated, even though a lot of things were red, but it was like really hurting Nvidia and the semis and the energy infrastructure plays. Outside of those stocks, other names could have been red, but they weren't they weren't the ones that really felt the brunt of the pain that Nvidia felt. And it seemed more like a Nvidia semis hit today versus August 5th, which again hit everything. But then again, August 5th recovered kind of intraday. So we didn't really see that recovery intraday on Nvidia. Sorry, late to the stream. Did you buy any Nvidia today? Yes, I bought 50 shares at 120 and I sold 2 puts at 110. Plan is to buy 100 shares. So I'll buy the next 50 shares tomorrow. If things get worse, maybe we get a little recovery, but might as well get those next 50 shares just depending on how the market treats it. I am really curious for what happens tomorrow, dude. I'm really curious what the hell happens tomorrow because today was a bloody day. You could argue today was Nvidia's Black Swan event. What happens the day after? What do the analysts say? How do they make up their minds? What does Jensen say? Does he actually come out with the actual statement? Because the Nvidia PR they put out today was not a real statement. I mean, no one really knows what they're trying to say in that statement, and they're not definitively saying yes or no around how they think DeepSeek was able to create what they've created. And more importantly, it doesn't give any future guidance or guidance is maybe the wrong word, but future kind of expectations on how people should think of GPU demand. And they probably can't do that, but that's what the street wants to hear right now. The street needs to hear something around NVIDIA's overarching demand going into the future. Kavish, thank you for the $5 super chat. I bought the dip for NVIDIA with 6,000 shares with NVDL. I know a lot of people that bought NVDL today, and NVDL definitely is, I mean, look, if you're going to sell puts on it or buy it, you do it on a day when it's down as much as it's down. And the only risk is that NVIDIA doesn't keep going down. But if you're buying it, obviously you think that there will be a bounce. Again, this is what NVIDIA said today. These were the two paragraphs. The only sentence that I thought was significant here was they said inference requires significant numbers of NVIDIA GPUs and high performance networking. That's it. That is leading me to believe that Deepseek has a ton of these GPUs, even if they're not literally saying that right now. Kirby, shout out to you. I'm a CS major at UC Berkeley. Awesome. Thank you for being here in the chat. And I imagine all the computer science AI people are like just seeing all the hoopla. All of us investors trying to figure out what the hell's happening. We're like, look, we're not deep in the tech. We just want to know, do we go long or short? That's it. Long or short. I don't care about the nuances of the technical infrastructure and the artificial intelligence. I just want to know long or short, baby. That's it. And Jensen did not give us an answer today in those two paragraphs. I did not feel, okay, this is a long or this is a short. I just felt this is a very good politically correct paragraph that he gave today. We are deeply seeking answers. Exactly. We are deeply seeking answers. Look, overall, my take on this, for those that are still confused about my take, is I think this is a nothing burger. I think this is going to be a nothing burger. I am perplexed by the amount that the market has taken down Nvidia, which is why I've been a little bit hesitant today, just in terms of like being aggressive on buying the dip. Because A, I don't know enough about NVIDIA. That's just like, I think I know some stuff about NVIDIA, but do I actually know the most in the world? Probably not. B, I like 20% down is not a dip to me. 20% down is like, that's 1/5 of the company's market valuation going away. A dip tends to be 7%, 8%. All right, 10% is a correction, 15% is like, okay, 20% is like, okay, do you guys just not believe in this anymore? And if that's the case, things could get worse before they get pretty. Right? Now, granted, if they don't believe in it for a stupid reason, because the market is not filled with smart AI PhD people, the market's filled with people like you and I, just regular investors, even if they work at a hedge fund, they are not technical experts either. So if the market is filled with those people, and those people have come to the conclusion that this DeepSeek thing is a real threat, and they're wrong, not a real threat, which is my intuition, then this has got to be one of the best dips ever on NVIDIA. But that is the broader question that we're going to have to end up figuring out. Pounter just tweeted. What did Pounter tweet? Oh, by the way, we did get a Pounter mention on CNBC today. Pounter. Yeah. Okay. This makes sense. So Pounter right here. Let me share this. Pounter quoted our boy Chad. Chad said LLMs are a commodity within Pounter AIP. And then he shows a video of how you can swap out different LLMs and use them together via KLLM inside of Palantir software. Palantir quote tweets and says model agnostic. If I was Palantir, I would tweet, it's the ontology bitches, but that's why I don't run Palantir's social account. Here's what CNBC said today about Palantir as well.
To Josh's point about the large language models, I'm a big fan of Alex Karp. I'm sure he's kind of laughing today at Palantir because he's been saying forever, LLMs are the commodity. It's what you build on top of that is what's going to create the return. And so if Masa and Larry Ellison and Sam Altman are building all these data centers to go just infer for OpenAI, I think you call that into question. To Josh's point about
Bryn has been a longtime Palantir bull. I think she got into the stock into the mid-20s about like 6-7 months ago. And she's a big fan of Karp, and she's absolutely correct on this. Karp has been talking about this thesis around LLMs being commoditized for a very, very, very long time. And the reason he's been talking about that thesis is because Palantir never was an LLM company. Palantir was just a company that was utilizing LLMs to deliver business results. And as a result, this is kind of a wake-up moment for a lot of the market that thought the value was in OpenAI. Maybe the value is not in the foundation model creators. It might be in the people that actually implement those foundation models to get results. Here is Bernstein's Stacy Rascon. He is one of the best analysts that I know on NVIDIA. I haven't heard his take today. Here's what he has to say, and then we'll keep going from there.
Now,
and bring in top chip analyst Stacy Rasgon of Bernstein. It's great to have you on a very important day to speak with you. What do you make of this story? What is the worst drop for Nvidia, at least in years?
Yeah, you bet. So I spent a lot of time this weekend, most of my weekend looking at this. So we knew it was going to be a circus today. Like, it was pretty clear, just given everything, all the takes that were there in the Twitterverse. I had sort of three conclusions. It's my own conclusions from this as call like a semi-informed layperson around this. But number one, I think the big issue was that the headline, the initial takes that came on this was, oh my God, China's duplicated OpenAI for $5 million, which is categorically not true. We can talk about what they did, but they did not train this reasoning model for $5 million. That did not happen. We can talk about why. But number two, how did they get the efficiencies that they did? These are very, very good models. Like, I don't want to discount that. But the types of things that they did, they're not miracles. They're a mixture of experts, and they did some very interesting with something called multi-headed attention, and they use lower precision calculation. These are all things that are known, and all of the labs are all working on, if not deploying already. So there was nothing here that was like unknown to anybody else, like in the AI industry. Like, these are not miracles. Finally, like number three, I personally think, we'll talk about, I think that this is clearly a panic today. I think it's overblown. The school of thought here is that, like, oh my God, these are so much more efficient. Like, we don't need as much investment. So number one, we actually don't know what they're spending to train the reasoning model that's causing the angst. My suspicion is quite a bit more than what they did to train the base model. And number two, you got to remember, like, I'm a semi guy. Like, I actually view cost reduction as a good thing. We want adoption. Like, in semiconductors, again, I'm probably biased, but like, cost fell by a factor of 2 every 2 years for 50 years. It was not a bad thing for semiconductor. It was a fantastic thing for semiconductor, man. Unless you think that we were already close to saturation in terms of the amount of compute that was going to be required for AI, we need these kinds of innovations and efficiencies, because otherwise, like, you're not going to be able to get to where they're going anyways. And
which makes sense. So the way to interpret what he's saying right there is like, hey, if we're going to make AGI and we're going to get to like GPT 1000, and right now we're at GPT 4, we have to have innovations on the inference training level in order to become more efficient. That doesn't mean we have less GPUs. That just means we get a lot more creative and efficient with how we train on those GPUs. But still, if we're going to ChatGPT 1000 and we're at ChatGPT 4, we got 996 levels to go, and that requires more compute. So theoretically, maybe the market wakes up in the next couple of days and they reinterpret this entire story like, wait a second, this is bullish, and Nvidia is going to 10 trillion because we need a lot more GPUs than what we thought from before.
So I think this was already happening. I think it needed to happen. And I can make, I think, a very clear argument that the more efficient things get, the more demand we will have, not less. So I actually think over the long term, this is a good thing, not a bad thing. But clearly the market disagrees today. So that is what it is.
I mean, Nvidia hasn't been afforded the multiple it has, nor the stock price, for that matter, on the idea of a commodity. Has it? Hasn't it been rewarded the way it has on the idea of the best, of a moat, on some level of exclusivity, at least now?
Well, the issue here is not that. Where is the commoditization and the? It's not the chips. It's the models, right? So again, if your business model going forward is we're developing AI models that we're going to sell to the general public, maybe you worry. Like, I don't know. It doesn't mean that, like, the folks that are doing this still don't need to buy a lot of chips. I think they're going to still go to buy a lot of chips. And by the way, what did we see last week as all this was happening? We saw Facebook, or Meta, I guess, massively take up their CapEx guide. We saw all the Stargate stuff. We even had China actually announced a 1 trillion RMB, so like roughly 140 billion US, a program for AI investment in China. This was all last week, right as all the Deepseek stuff was happening. Deepseek's not new either, by the way. The V3 model, the base model, was actually released on December 26th. Like, none of this is new. None of this is surprising to any of the large US guys that are spending all this money. They're spending it anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, NVIDIA's future in some respect is leveraged to the development, the production, and the success of Blackwell. If the company is telling you I'm going to read a comment from a spokesperson at NVIDIA, which I think speaks to this, and we can discuss on the other side, where they say Deepseek's work shows how new models can be created, leveraging widely available models and compute that is fully export control compliant. Now, you could read that and say, well, is the company admitting that you don't need the latest, greatest, most expensive chip to do what Deepseek appears to have done?
No, I don't think that's what they're. So they're making a statement on China here because that came out of China. But look, you're going to have, like, if you're getting a massive proliferation of models frankly, of all shapes and colors and sizes, you're getting adoption. This is over time what we want. Right. This is not, again, this is not a bad thing. You're going to hear this a lot today, probably already, but there's a concept known as Jervin's paradox. The idea is as efficiencies and costs come down, like, demand more than offsets. I keep going back. I went to the Hot Chips conference a couple years ago, and Bill Daly, who's NVIDIA's chief scientist, was giving the keynote. He was actually talking about performance improvements in GPUs. And he talked about, like, over the prior 10 years, NVIDIA had improved GPU performance by like 1,000x. It was a bunch of things, process tech and architectures and sparsity and lower numerical precision, all kinds of things. But what he said in that keynote was, like, over the next 10 years, we want to improve the GPU performance by another 1,000,000x. Like, again, unless you think that we are at the limit of what the compute that we need, I think this is a good thing. And if you look historically, we've never, ever had enough compute. Like, I've got the data going back even before AI was, like, taking off, just looking at, like, sort of installed compute in the data centers, like in MIPS and millions of instructions per second. I have this data going back like 30 years. It was growing at 50% a year forever. It never stops. So I'm personally not of the belief that you can have enough compute. I think if we're getting efficiency gains, which I think we need if we're going to meet the compute demands that AI and accelerated compute are placing on us, I think that we're going to get absorbed. I think we need this.
So Stacy's pretty bullish. Stacy is thinking that this compute demand for Nvidia is not going anywhere. Nvidia up 2.2% after hours. Either it's playing with our hearts right here, or we legit have some. Dude, I feel like there's just people that came home from work. They didn't look at their brokers today. They're logging in and they're like, what? Okay, buying the dip. Like, I feel like that's what's happening right here. Like, because it's either that or it's algos after hours. But look, I think Stacy's argument makes a lot of sense in regards to the overall demand that's needed for compute. I do think that NVIDIA's messaging today, although it was confusing, their press release, was more politically motivated than technologically motivated, meaning they didn't really give an answer on the tech, but they did make a statement from a political perspective on how Deepseek got these GPUs, because the last thing NVIDIA wants is for the US government to be thinking that NVIDIA is illegally sending GPUs to China. I'm sure they don't want that headache to deal with. So their statement was more so around this idea of, hey, Deepseek was able to figure out, even though they had legal access to GPUs from 2022, and that is great for them. It's essentially what NVIDIA said. And then finally, they said inference requires significant numbers of NVIDIA GPUs and high performance networking. Like, dude, either we believe NVIDIA on this or we don't. I feel like I would rather believe NVIDIA than some analyst. If NVIDIA says you need a lot of GPUs to do this, and Zuck's is spending $65 billion, Nadella's spending 50 or 80 billion, both of them knew that DeepSeek was a thing. I would imagine their research teams knew that DeepSeek was a thing a while ago. Then it's hard to imagine them continuing to want to do this spend without needing to justify the spend. But if they are justifying the spend, then maybe there's an argument for why. We do have a little update on how Meta is thinking of this right here. Let me pull up to this right here, and let's watch a little bit of this as well. Okay, so here's what we have around Meta setting up war rooms at their headquarters to try to deal with what's happening with DeepSeek. We'll talk more about SoFi in a bit as well. Here we go.
Rival large language models are reacting to DeepSeek's R1 LLM. According to the information, Meta has already set up 4 war rooms to analyze the technology. 2 of those rooms are reportedly focused on how Highflyer, the hedge fund that created DeepSeek, was able to reduce training costs. I know you hit on it, but DeepSeek claimed to have trained its models on older NVIDIA chips for just $5.6 million. Now, some on X, including Elon Musk, are suggesting that DeepSeek actually has the higher end GPUs from NVIDIA, but they're just not admitting it. But that less than $6 million price tag compares to the $100 million plus that it costs to train the latest model behind OpenAI's ChatGPT. So the information is reporting that Meta actually wants to utilize those techniques. So those are the first two war rooms. Now the third war room is focused on what data Highflyer may have used. Deepseek has made R1 open source under that the MIT license, and it also laid out its methods in 2 detailed white papers. So Meta likely analyzing those. And then the fourth war room is considering new techniques for restructuring Meta's models based on the attributes of the DeepSeek models. So you can see Meta's reaction right here. Shares were significantly lower this morning, now only down about 0.4%. Now we should get more reaction from companies like Meta, Mark Zuckerberg on the earnings call, Satya Nadella over at Microsoft. So I'm assuming they'll be facing some hard questions on the earnings calls this week, especially since they've already pledged to spend billions more to really advance.
So now here's the thing. Meta is setting up war rooms. Okay, this is what a company should do when there's a breakthrough in technology. A company should get their smartest people together and try to deeply analyze what is happening with that technology. Meta has earnings in 2 days. Again, I said this in the morning, but if there is any hint of Zuck's taking back his commitment of 60 to 65 billion on CapEx because of what these war rooms might find out about how you don't need as many GPUs to be able to still get the same results, that's going to be a little scary for Nvidia. And there's no denying that. That is going to be a little scary. The probability of that happening, I'm putting it at 10%. So I'm going 90-10. 90%, I think they keep the GPUs. 10%, I think they'll, or the CapEx spend. 10%, there could be a world in which they decrease it. But even if they do decrease it, like what? They go from 60 billion to 50 billion, which would be a substantial decrease for Meta, $10 billion, but it's still $50 billion they're spending. And again, I just don't think they're, unless this revolution out of DeepSeek is so unbelievably transformational that Zuckerberg thinks that he needs to spend less than his competitors in regards to Sundar and Nadella on the AI wars, which all indications that he's given over the past couple of years that he wants to spend as much as possible. And we know Zucks can spend some money. He wasted 70 billion on the metaverse. But we know he is fine with spending shareholder capital and making sure they invest in the future. Also, Zucks was on Joe Rogan's podcast the other week, and he was saying Apple has pretty much given up on innovation. And part of the reason is because Apple didn't plan for a lot of things happening in the future. Zucks has always been ahead of the market, even if some things he got wrong, like with the metaverse stuff. But they took all their GPUs they bought for the metaverse and they transitioned them into fueling their advertising business. So it's not like that investment necessarily went to waste. So it would be very, very hard for me to see Zuckerberg, who has always been anxious to spend more and keep Meta at the cutting edge of all this technology, to decide they're going to decrease their CapEx spend, especially when their free cash flows are through the roof. Like Meta can afford it. Google can afford it. Amazon can afford it. Microsoft can afford it. And their stocks are at all-time highs. So it's not like 2022 when the stock was at $88 and they had to find a way to decrease costs. And then what do? They cut 20,000 employees because they honestly just didn't need that many people in mid-level management positions. The stock's at an all-time high. Like the market's willing to let you spend $60 billion and still take your stock to 1.67 trillion at a 30 PE. It's like, what is the incentive to not spend money? You don't really need the stock to go up that much more, given that, the stock will naturally go up as a result of earnings, but it's not like you need to pump the stock because it's at $88. That's not the situation that Zucks is in right now. Wednesday's going to be interesting. Wednesday is going to be interesting when we get these earnings results. Another thesis that we had today that we talked about a little bit more in the morning, this is what Chris Camillo said, who is a friend of the channel. He said, what if there's a probability that a lot of these Chinese hedge funds, including the parent hedge fund of Deepseek, which is operating underneath a hedge fund, it's not even a tech company, it's a tech company inside of a hedge fund. What if they knew their model was so good and they went short Nvidia over the past couple weeks? They put out the news that their model is available to compete with OpenAI and it's only going to cost $6 million. That's the headline. They knew that would tank Nvidia, then they covered their shorts today, and now they're going long. If that happened, again, that would be some next level shit from Chinese hedge funds to be able to manipulate the news cycle and really get a benefit of some of these tech companies at a discount. But that is another angle here that could be playing out. Doug says, Wednesday, what if Zucks doesn't announce a cut to CapEx? Will investors be pissed and sell them off like they did 2 quarters ago? I don't think so. I think at this point, if Zucks announces just that CapEx is stable, investors will be so happy. Because it won't just be meta investors. I think it'll be investors around the entire AI trade if the CapEx belief still continues to stand. I think the number one thing investors want to hear from Nadella and Zuckerberg this week is that they are not reducing their CapEx spend. Now, they're probably going to ask them, well, given what we see in China, why aren't you reducing? And they're going to need a good answer to that question. But as long as Zucks and Nadella have a good answer, which I think is going to be the exact same answer that Stacy just gave, which is that we need to keep investing because we're going to AGI and the G is not here when it comes to A and I. And I think the market's going to be okay with that. As long as they believe that that is going to be the answer. Okay, let's do a question in the chat. Let's do a question here in the chat. And the question is, okay, here's a good question. The question is Nvidia closer to 150 or 120 after earnings? So closer to 150 or 120. Not exactly 150 or 120, but which one is it closer to? There you go. Poll in the chat. What do you guys think? 150 or 120 for Nvidia? Rodney says China recently announced 160 billion in AI capex spend on infrastructure. Clearly, they don't believe the 6 million either. Yeah, I mean, even freaking ByteDance, right? That was the headline last week. ByteDance announced 12 billion in increased capex spend. A lot of that going to Nvidia because TikTok's algorithm needs to compete with Meta's Instagram Reel algorithm, and the only way to make it better and better is to have the most advanced inference training. So, dude, it just with all this money being spent to get here, the $6 million headline feels like a bunch of BS. Even if it is accurate to an extent, because it is accurate. They did only spend 6 to 10 million to train it on top of the pre-existing architecture, but that architecture that they had to build out, aka those GPUs and data centers, that cost them a couple billion. And it's like that's not the one that's getting the headline here. We have, what do we have in the poll? We have 70% 150, 30% 120. So the majority of people believing we are headed back into the 150s. Dude, if we start going up to like 125, 126, everyone's going to be buying, bro. Everyone. Like everyone's going to be excited because then they're like, all right, so this was stupid. Like we'll get back into Nvidia. Like if we actually start getting back up there, it just takes a couple bucks for everyone to be like, well, yeah, this Deepseek thing, not that important. Whereas Nvidia, 120, all right, it's giving back some of its gains. It was almost at 122. Now it's back at 120. So there's 2 red candles right there. Not able to hold on to its after hours. I want Zuck to go from 0 to 60 to 0 real quick. Yeah, well, Meta shareholders would love him to get rid of 60 billion of capex. But again, it I don't know. I mean, that Meta's called, dude. We're gonna be listening to Tesla on Wednesday because that's the big one. We can only listen to one of them, Tesla, Microsoft, or Meta. We're gonna pick Tesla, but I'll have the Meta call pulled up in the background, and that's the number one quote I'm gonna be looking for. The number one quote I'm going to be looking for is, are they spending as much as they said they were going to spend? That's got to be the first question, bro. That's got to be the first question. I was surprised on SoFi today. The first question wasn't about crypto. They were asking about all this stuff that seems so irrelevant to me. But SoFi, by the way, they finally answered at the end. Notice that they're going to try to get crypto as soon as possible. That one down about 10.2%. Again, to me, this one just got hit. It was a bad data report for any stock on a day like this when the NASDAQ was down almost 5%. So I thought it was good earnings. 2025 guidance kind of sucked. We did have one of the analysts come out today and say that they weren't a fan of the guidance, but they were a fan of the overall quarter on SoFi, which is fair. And that kind of explains the 10% decline we saw on SoFi. I'll see if I can get the exact wording of what they said. Oh, here we go. JP Morgan. Yeah. So they still have a $16 price target, which is where SoFi's at right now. And JP Morgan said right here, headline fourth quarter 2024 revenue and adjusted EBITDA were comfortably ahead of street estimates and guidance driven by unique upside in the lending and financial services segment. But EBITDA guidance missed the street estimates. Specifically, management guided to 30% incremental adjusted EBITDA margins, which was well below the 50% that the street expected, as the company emphasized plans to reinvest earnings back into the business. On the bright side, full year revenue growth of guidance of 25% came in well ahead of estimates. All told, it was a strong quarter highlighted by the record member growth and originations, though overshadowed, at least for the near term, by soft EBITDA guidance. So kind of just like, hey, we're not that happy with the EBITDA guidance. Management's probably sandbagging that anyway, but based on the data we have, it was good earnings, wasn't a phenomenal earnings. And hopefully when this Deepseek stuff dies down in terms of narrative, SoFi might continue to catch a bit. Who was closest to the results, Tanner, Tevis, or Chris? I'm actually not sure. I know Chris was wrong, or he was way off on his, in a good way. He was way off. He was too conservative on the home originations, auto originations, and personal loan, or student loan originations and personal loan originations. They beat on those numbers very nice. They beat by almost like 500 million on all three of those categories. It was great. But then that EPS number just like really got the street upset for 2025. But then they reaffirmed their 2026 guidance. So the street was like, okay, so they're going to keep growing even if 2025 is more of an investment year. But I think they're sandbagging 2025, which is probably what they need to do to underdeliver and overpromise, or underpromise and then overdeliver. I think we get 30 minutes of Meta before Tesla. Okay, perfect. So if we get 30 minutes of the Meta call before Tesla on Wednesday, then all eyes will be on Zuckerberg. And we'll see what he has to say. Jose is not available today. Jose will be available tomorrow morning. He was not able to make today, but tomorrow, Tuesday in the morning, we'll have Jose on and we'll get his thoughts on what he thinks is happening with Deepseek. Dude, overall, again, like this is either a complete re-rating of this stock and the street has fundamentally lost their belief in the Nvidia thesis, which is wild that it can happen like this. I mean, what it does go to show is that Nvidia losing a lot of its gains right now after hours. It goes to show how fragile the Nvidia thesis is, right? Like for anyone thinking the Nvidia thesis is rock hard, solid, and nothing's going to break it, it's very fragile. And Wall Street's kind of holding on by a thread when they think of Nvidia, because to take them down 17%, worst day in over 5 years, $590 billion of losses on Nvidia. For Wall Street to actually do that means, off of a Deepseek Chinese model headline, means they really didn't have that much belief going into January 27th, which begs the question, what have they been basing a lot of their analysis on when it comes to Nvidia? Like, I don't think retail sold $600 billion of Nvidia stock. The last worst day for Nvidia was September 3rd when they lost $279 billion. And then after that, you have to go back to August 29th when they lost $197 billion. But retail didn't sell off $600 billion of Nvidia, bro. Like, that's not, I don't think that's happening. I think those were hedge funds, money managers saying, we are going to step aside from this for the moment. Mark, thank you for the $20 super chat. Do you think OpenAI's O1 operators hacked Deepseek? I don't know. Deepseek had this weird thing today where you couldn't sign up and use it for a certain amount of time because they said we had a malicious attack on the website and it was a cyber attack. Do you believe that? Maybe. It's hard to believe Chinese companies. One could argue that maybe they were just upgrading their servers and they didn't want to look like they had crappy servers. Like in America, OpenAI went down a couple weeks ago and Sam Altman tweeted, hey guys, our servers are getting overblown. Give us like 30 minutes. We're going to try to figure this out. Maybe Deepseek doesn't want to seem like a company that can't handle demand. And so they paint this narrative that there's large scale malicious attacks and therefore you can't use the product for the certain period of time. So then you don't blame Deepseek, the company, you blame the hackers that are attacking Deepseek. But then it begs the question, is that true? Like, is there actually a large scale malicious attack on Deepseek? And who the hell is attacking you guys? So it's like there's a lot more questions than answers on this. And no one officially knows. I'm pretty sure Nvidia's market cap loss was historic. Yeah, I don't know if another company has lost $590 billion in a day. I don't know if that has happened before. I imagine there's probably been some that are close, 17% is wild though, bro. Wild. Like absolute, like I did not, even in the morning when I saw it at 125, I was like, okay, this is already a little ridiculous. 125. And we end the day at 117, really? I mean, it's pretty incredible. Now, here is one of the guys who it was the founder of Coursera and works at Stanford's computer science program. He wrote this today. Today's Deepseek sell-off in the stock market attributed to Deepseek V3 R1 disrupting the tech ecosystem is another sign that the application layer is a great place to be, aka Palantir. The foundation model layer being hyper competitive is great for people building applications. And he's correct about this. He's absolutely correct about this. If Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon are fighting with each other, the consumer is going to benefit the most, and the builders on top of all those platforms, the Salesforces, the Datadogs, the Snowflakes, the Palantirs, et cetera, all these software applications on top of hyperscalers that pay for compute, but they don't actually pay for data centers to build compute, they're going to get cheaper prices, and they're going to get more of the value from actually solving an issue for an enterprise client, aka a company or a government agency, versus building out the raw data center or computational infrastructure itself. So, I mean, again, Palantir fell, for those that are wondering, because it's a high beta stock and it's up a decent amount since it fell to 63. It hit 82 the other day, but outside of that, I don't think Palantir's down because of the Nvidia thesis. I think Palantir's down just because it's a growth stock. Like, all eyes are really on Nvidia here. That's what all eyes are on. All eyes are on, has this stock had a paradigmatic narrative shift in the equities market, or is this the stupidest dip ever? I think it's one or the other, dude. I kind of don't think it's in the middle. I think it's one or the other. I think this is the stupidest dip ever, or this company is being re-rated because the street does not believe what they used to believe on Nvidia. And I really don't think the stock can easily be re-rated, given how much analysis has been out there on Nvidia over the past couple of years, and how much growth we've seen from Nvidia, and how much growth we're going to see in Q4 going into 2025 from Nvidia, which makes me feel like my gut tells me this is the stupidest thing ever. But 17% down is a hell of a re-rating, if it is a real re-rating on Nvidia. Which company being down 70% today is sillier than Robinhood or Palantir? You mean 7%, Doug? Not 70%? 70% would be aggressive. I think both. I think Hood and the thing about Hood is it makes sense why Hood gets hit, because a lot of trading is a lot of people are selling stocks. A lot of people are not maybe buying call options. People are taking money out of their brokerage, yada, yada. Hood's a proxy on the market. Nvidia falls, the market falls, Hood falls. But on the flip side, a lot of people might be depositing a ton of money into Robinhood to buy the dip. A lot of people might be buying a ton of options on Nvidia. A lot of people might be buying back their covered calls, which creates more option activity. Like, this is why I like Robinhood so much. They benefit up or down. They benefit more when it's a bull market. But in general, all the activity we saw today is definitely not bad for them. And they held up really nicely, 47.70. That's not bad, dude. That's even holding the 45 support, which is really, really decent on Hood, given it was at 38 a week ago. And then even Palantir at 75. And we have earnings on Palantir in 6 days. And I think the street's going to be looking for growth. And I think Karp, which, by the way, I wanted to play this clip because I think today is one of the best days to play this clip of Karp readdressing the issue of the ontology and LLMs. If Karp, okay, here's my prediction on Palantir earnings in terms of Karp's theatrical performance. I think he's going to walk into those earnings, and then if they have the right numbers, which I think they will, my guess is that they're going to guide for upwards of 32 to 34% growth. He's going to walk in, and when he does his monologue, it's going to basically be saying, I told you so, without saying I told you so. And he's going to make the argument that the LLMs are useless, and what matters are the value proposition you get from the implementation of those. Make that something that the street can't ignore. And then if they have the growth to back up his bravado, and the stupid SARS thing doesn't matter that much, which is a whole nother issue. We're going to have to see how that plays out. If that ends up happening, then I think Palantir has a good earnings. But it's really going to come down to how he ends up communicating this. Here's Karp talking about this whole ontology LLM debate a couple months ago.
Serious revolution. People basically have it wrong. They think all the values in the large language models. Large language models are like is like hydrocarbons in the ground. They need to be processed. If you're going to do something beyond chat, something that is crucial for the business, like bringing hydrocarbons out of the ground, or actually in the government context, monitoring troops, figuring out how to kill your adversary while staying alive, that raw knowledge has to be processed and put in your system, in the logic of your system, and in the security model of your system at the cost your system wants to pay for a particular kind of model. So long story short, that hydrocarbon-like LLM is essentially worthless to your business without the processing capabilities, both in the ontology and in Foundry. And we believed this 5 years ago. We figured this out, by the way, by doing work for the US government. Some of that work is going to be presented today. So if you want to really kill your adversary on the battlefield or change the economics of your business, you need a way of processing the raw resources.
So commercial customers, that's the growth engine of the company. It's doubled since you launched AIP, but you're talking about your military business. Presidential debate this week.
So again, that was Karp basically saying the LLMs need to be refined like they're oil and processed. And in order to do that, you need an ontology. You need an actual implementation of those large language models in a business to make sense of them. This has been the Palantir thesis for a long time. Street's waking up to how relevant that thesis is. Now, what's also important right here is, again, if we believe DeepSeek at its most logical level is like what everyone says it is, and it's like the most hyped up thing ever, and there's like legit legs to stand behind the hype, I don't think that's bearish Nvidia. I think that's bearish OpenAI. Like that's not bearish Nvidia. I think that's bearish OpenAI. That's bearish Anthropic. That's not bearish Nvidia, because again, we need more compute. Like I'm not on this logical syllogism that the market has adopted today, which is that if DeepSeek can do something really good, that means we need less Nvidia demand. I don't buy that yet. And maybe I'm ignorant and I need to learn a lot more about that, but I'm not buying that yet. What I am buying is that if DeepSeek can do what they've done, regardless of how many GPUs we use, because that's still up in question, it definitely means OpenAI's moat has to come into question. Anthropic's moat has to come in question. Gemini's moat has to come in question. The only one that's not coming into question is Llama, because it never had a moat, because it was always open source, which ironically might be the moat. So it begs the question, how do these foundation model creators monetize what they've spent so much money to create? Google, I think, has an easy way to monetize its ads as they integrate Gemini into search overviews and can recommend products when you search for a topic. I don't know how OpenAI monetizes, and I definitely don't know how Anthropic monetizes. Both of those, I think, are a little bit more struggling to me, and that affects Microsoft more than anything else, and Amazon to an extent, because Amazon owns a ton of Anthropic. We need more compute. We need more compute. Let me call Steve. Let's see if he picks up. He's been in meetings all day. He did buy Nvidia today. Let's see if he picks up. Don't know if he'll be able to, but we'll try to get his thoughts.
How scared are you?
Steve, you're live on the market close.
How scared are you?
Dude, I bought Nvidia. I'm not a pussy. I bought it.
Everybody's scared today. I don't know why.
I'm not gonna lie. I was a little shook today. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little shook.
Uh-huh. You're part of the shook club, huh?
Well, I sold some puts on Nvidia. I bought some Nvidia. Sold some puts on SoFi. Sold some puts on Hood. So I had a little bit of action, but
that doesn't sound like you're shook.
Yeah, because, well, look, at the end of the day, I feel like there's been two camps, okay? Two camps I've been talking about all day. One camp is you believe that Nvidia has fundamentally been re-rated and the market has completely changed their entire narrative on the stock. That's one camp. The other camp is that this is the dumbest dip in the history of Nvidia stock. And I'm a little bit more in the second camp than the first camp.
I'm going to give you a different perspective on this. Nvidia lost roughly $600 billion worth of market cap on a headline. Think about that. From China, of all places. I mean, hard for me to take that seriously, and that's why I bought more Nvidia today.
So you didn't think too much about it. You were just like, this is stupid, and you bought.
I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it's stupid. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, look, one, and I am not a technical person. There are probably 1,000 people in your chat that know more about semiconductors and inference than I do, okay? But to think that they pulled this off with $6 million budget worth of hardware and programmers, when Meta ChatGPT and freaking Alphabet couldn't is preposterous. It's insanity to actually believe that. And then reports come out saying that they have, what was it, 55,000 H100s or something like that?
Yes. Yeah.
That they bought on the black market or wherever they got them from, because technically they shouldn't even be having them. That is a way more likely scenario of how they got to where they are. Way more likely than them spending $6 million and they crack some code that the best and brightest in America with blank checks and extensive resources couldn't do. I'm not buying that story. It's not, to me, it's not even a story. It's bullshit.
Okay. Well, I agree, but let me push back a little right here. How is the stock this fragile to go down on a bullshit headline?
It wasn't just the stock, it was the whole market to some extent. I mean, the NASDAQ went down, what, 700 points?
Yeah, but Nvidia led the decline. So my question is, why do you think?
Yeah, it led the decline, but you got to remember, this is not a stock market of individual buyers. This is a stock market of stop losses, high frequency trading. The second anything starts to get momentum to the downside or the upside, it trips everything and it just intensifies it.
Yeah, but
That's
Steve,
what everybody needs to remember.
I get it, Steve. But 600 billion is a little bit more than just algorithms, in my opinion.
Well, maybe.
My broader question here is: do you think the market says they believe in Nvidia, but based on the action we saw today, they really don't know what they're investing in to take it down 20%?
I do think a lot of it is from quants and a lot of it is from algorithms. I don't think it's from long-term investors. And I don't even think it's from big pension funds or none of that stuff. S&P funds, none of it. It's got to be high frequency.
Well, I agree with you. There's definitely some algorithms in play. I just think down 20% is a bit aggressive.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Like this is supposed to be this is supposed to be the darling of Wall Street, right?
Down 20% in a day on what the eve of Meta reporting on post Microsoft announcing 80 billion. Like Microsoft isn't announcing 80 billion in data center sales if they're not doing it. You know, these companies are going to keep spending more money. This is a nothing burger. Unless this changes what Zuckerberg says on the earnings call at the end of the week, and unless this changes what Nadella and Jassy and these guys say and what they do, it doesn't change a thing. They're still going to buy up all the chips. Nvidia's still going to print. It's ridiculous.
So let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, or 0 to 100 percentage-wise, how likely do you think it is that Zuckerberg takes back his $65 billion statement on earnings in a couple of days?
I think it's pretty unlikely.
You would put it
Here's
at
why.
5%? You would put it at 10% probability?
I would put it at less than 10%.
Okay.
Here's why. If Nadella is committed to 80 billion, Zuck can't back down.
That's a good point.
And Nadella came out on CNBC and he trolled Elon saying that they're good for the 80. They're going to spend 80 regardless because they have other use cases for it than just modeling. They have real use cases in cloud. And same with Jassy. Jassy's going to increase the spend. He's got real use case for it. Meta, look, when you think about everything that Zuckerberg has accomplished, when you think about everything that he's done, he's got the best engineers working for him. Their AI is going to be able to write mid-level code, and it's only going to get better. And he really believes he needs more GPUs. Does anybody really believe that this company did this on a $6 million budget? It's insane. And how about this? Blackwell is not going to be sold in China. So when all these companies are getting their Blackwell chips, and they already started, how much further are we going to be ahead in 6 months from now? Nobody's backing down.
Yeah, that's another good point. If Blackwell doesn't get to China, but I think the street's questioning: do you even need Blackwell to get new results on better models? And that's the existential question, right?
We haven't even hit AR or any of that stuff yet. Mixed reality. We haven't hit any of it yet. There's a lot that still needs to happen. And for these companies that think that they need all the firepower, I don't see them slowing down. I can't believe that this many people are buying this story. It's crazy.
So, but see, again, that's what I can't come to grips with. I know you said it's algorithms, but this many people buying a BS headline, it doesn't make sense, bro. It feels like there's something else to this.
What do you mean it doesn't make sense? It happened with the yen carry trade too. People got shook on that and got scared out of positions. And I still think it was algorithms that took the market down on that one. I don't think it was individuals.
Yeah, but the yen carry trade, there was a macro argument around currency exchanges and leverage. This is like,
yeah, I dispelled that pretty quickly for you, and within a day it corrected.
No, I get it, but this had nothing to do with the 10-year or shorting the yen going. This had to do with Nvidia's moat. That's what today had to deal with.
Nvidia's moat, they don't have any competition.
I know that. You know that. I think a lot of people in the chat agree with that, but the market, for some reason, doesn't think that's the case.
And the market can be irrational on a day-to-day basis. Let's see what happens. I may have to correct my statements if big tech says something different on the earnings calls. But everything we're seeing out of big tech is contradicting that headline.
Yeah.
And how about Larry Ellison? So let's get away from this side for a second. Larry Ellison is going all in on cancer research. Okay? He needs 20 data centers to do this. What do we think is going to be in the 20 data centers?
Probably some GPUs.
Probably some GPUs. And as gene sequencing and all these things get more powerful, you're going to need more and more. This isn't the AI on the modeling is not the only use case for these GPUs. And these companies are still building out infrastructure for other things, from full self-driving to robotics to cancer research. I'm not seeing how this headline means anything for NVIDIA's future revenue in the next year or two. And there is going to come a point where the build-out slows and it becomes maintenance. I still don't think we're there yet, unless Nadella says, you know what, we're just going to do 40 billion. Then we got a problem.
If he says that, what do you think happens to Nvidia that day?
He says that Nvidia goes to 75.
Oh boy.
Because if he says it, it's going to create a chain reaction where maybe Zuck doesn't need to spend 65. Maybe he just needs to spend 30. Maybe Jassy only needs to spend 30. And then all the future guidance is screwed for NVIDIA. That would be the worst thing. So this earnings season, it was already important. It is now the most important earnings season we've had in the past 2 years. Because of one stupid headline.
Do you think Nvidia's closer to 150 or 120 after their earnings?
How about 100 or 150, considering they're at 120 right now?
Yeah, but like, come on. It's like either you think they're going to dip further or you think this is stupid.
No, you don't have the scenario you outlined. Either we're going to flatline and just stay here or go up. You didn't even give me it's going to keep going down or it's going to go up.
Okay, so fine, 100 or 150.
I think it's going to be 150 after earnings.
64% of the chat agrees with you.
Because earnings, okay, if guidance doesn't change, the earnings are already earned. Think about that. Q4 2024 is over, solidified. Full capacity on book.
Dude, I miss the days when my only investment was Palantir, and I literally didn't have to worry about any of this shit. And now I'm like, oh, I got some Meta, I got some Nvidia, I got some all this shit. Now I'm like, oh, I actually got to worry about these companies, you know?
Yeah, now you feel like me, where you have to freaking stay up half the night and read every little thing you can find.
Dude, first of all, this name Deepseek, I hate saying it every time. Every freaking time. It sounds like Deep Cheeks. Like this just sounds stupid, bro. Deepseek. Like, what is this thing?
So refer to it as the most ridiculous art headline that you've ever seen.
Well, I have,
you don't have
but
to say it.
Yeah, I get it. It's just, oh boy, it's funny. I only have 150 shares of Nvidia. Like, this does not affect my life this much. But it's not really about my personal capital. It's about the markets, right? Like if Nvidia falls, you know what happens to the market?
You need Nvidia to go higher, to carry the market higher. because if not, you better hope a full rotation out of tech happens into value. Otherwise, we're going to stay here or go down.
Steve, I don't know. Meta hit all-time highs today without Nvidia.
And I told you, freaking Meta did a 180 today.
No, but Apple and Meta went up and Nvidia went down, right?
Okay.
Like, do you really need Nvidia to go higher for the market to go higher?
Yes.
I don't think you do if the market re-rates the hyperscalers and gives them.
Nvidia is 6.5% of S&P.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because if Google and Amazon and Meta are not spending $60 billion on capex, all that money goes back into buybacks and those stocks go up, right? So like,
Nvidia could trigger a drawdown on the market.
it definitely could, and it did today. But
it would be easier for the market to go higher if Nvidia goes higher with everything.
I agree with that 100%. I agree with that.
Do you need it? Probably. Maybe you can get around it after a week or two, but it's a lot easier for the market to go up as a whole if Nvidia is in the front running with some of these other companies.
So how much longer do you think in the news cycle we talk about Deepseek?
I don't know. I'm hoping it was a one and done. I mean, the Jen carry trade was what, 2 days?
Did you say Jen carry trade?
Days? Yeah, the yen carry trade.
I heard Jen.
No, yen carry trade.
Yeah, that was like a week, and then that was over. That was it.
So I don't know. I think it's going to be another flash. Who knows? But the biggest thing you got to remember is we got a lot of earnings coming out. So I think this is going to get swallowed up. I think this is going to be a nothing burger, and you're going to have people talking about a whole bunch of things from all these different earnings calls.
I mean, I think earnings are going to crush it like they've already crushed it, but the number one question is going to be about CapEx now for a lot of the hyperscalers.
Yeah, and if CapEx doesn't change, NVIDIA's fine.
I agree.
And hey, how about AT&T? How about AT&T being over 26? This thing was at 15.
You've owned this for like 10 years, right? AT&T?
Something like that, a long time.
Yeah, 6.25%. Well, it was a great day for them to report, given value caught a bid, right?
I didn't even see the earnings. I got to look at it. I mean, I was happy with Verizon. I mean,
what was your take on SoFi?
Dude, you and I just discussed this pretty early in the morning. I think that the market is wrong. Crushed it in 2024, and their guide is soft on purpose. They're sandbagging. I mean, what was the range of 22 to 25 cents on EPS for 2025?
Yeah.
They're probably going to come in around 30 cents, which means that their forward projection for the following year is spot on with the range. So, I mean, I think it's a great year, and I think they're going to keep doing better. And look, if the OCC comes out and allows them to have crypto on the platform, and they said two things on the earnings call about clients they got, now we just need a top-tier bank. But, I mean, people were worried about the tech platform, and what I say to you, we got to see what they say on the earnings call. They mentioned two things about the tech platform that were very bullish, and the fact that they're getting into business with Blue Owl. Do you know who Blue Owl is?
I do not.
I'm not going to use the word equivalent, but they are in the same realm as KKR. They are the managers for Blue Owl Capital BDC, and they are a huge PE company.
So that's a big one for them.
It's very bullish that they are doing the loan thing with them. It's just more proof about the liquidity in their loans, and the members are driving this. When you look at I don't know how anybody could be bearish about their growth rate for 2024. I mean, you look at that growth rate; it was great.
Yeah, but guidance is what the streets.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're guiding for 25% revenue growth. Sorry.
Yeah, again, it comes down to EPS growth. That's what I agree with you, though. It was a good quarter.
EPS growth. I mean, they generated how much EPS this year? And then look what they're going to generate next year. I mean, it's not insignificant.
Not
and once again, we know that in Q1, they're going to beat and raise. We know that. They always do that.
What do you think about Tesla on Wednesday?
I'm not changing my stance on that. I think it goes down. I don't think that they're going to have the quarter everybody wants them to have. And this could be where it goes up $50 a share if the quarter sucks, but they paint a rosy picture about FSD and Optimus for 2025, then this could go to 500. I think it's more about what they paint, not what they print.
What do you think about SMCI then? Following that, you think this is also just irrationally selling this off?
No, this doesn't. Look, I bought SMCI a couple of weeks ago. I think it's going to run. I don't think this headline has anything to do with it because their products are still in demand. If you still have data center growth, then you're still going to have growth in SMCI. And I have a feeling that the findings are going to be a nothing burger. I don't think BDO would have taken them on as a client if there was massive fraud going on. I just don't. They would have had some no-name shop take them on as an auditing firm. So I'm not too worried about it.
All right. We will talk to you after Meta and Tesla and Microsoft report on Wednesday, Steve.
What day is Meta reported? Thursday?
All three are on Wednesday, and they're after J.
Why do they all have to be on the same day? It's so annoying.
It's going to be pretty chaotic on Wednesday.
I mean, how do you listen to 3 earnings calls at once?
You don't.
You don't.
You pick your favorite.
Which is Meta.
Well, we'll listen to some of Meta, but then I'm going to Tesla. Tesla's the one I'm looking for.
Because I own way more Meta than I do Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, all three of them are going to be important. But here's the funny thing. If all three of them crush, which outside of Tesla, I think Meta and Microsoft are definitely crushing. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be that big of a deal anymore.
You got 3 great companies reporting this week, and I think that they're going to have to say something about this.
Oh, of course. I think in their prepared statements, they should say something.
I mean, we saw what Nvidia put out. They put out a statement today that
but that statement was not really giving any answers, to be honest.
So is nobody listening to Ives anymore because he's not talking about Palantir?
No, it's not about no one's listening to Ives. What I've noticed is people love Ives, but they know he's always going to say the same thing, which is buy the dip. So people are a bit desensitized to it. It's not that he's wrong. He's been right for the past 2.5 years. It's just...
Think about this. Nvidia hasn't done anything since last quarter, and last quarter was insane. That this stock should have been to 175 off of last quarter's print, but it stayed and did nothing. Okay? It's been consolidating. It's going to, if they come out, think about this setup. Drop 600 billion today. Let's just say we tread water until earnings. If Jensen comes out with a killer quarter and big guidance and comes out and says that this headline doesn't change a thing, what happens to Nvidia stock then? So
my intuition is Nvidia goes up, but the nuance here, which is not the sort of basic argument of like, all right, you got to buy the dip. The nuance here is how much is the market going to believe Jensen based on what they're seeing come out of China? I think that is where we're going to have either a hiccup again or we're going to go up.
Maybe this is exactly what we needed. Maybe this just solidifies how important the AI race is. And maybe this is a testament to how the EO from Biden may not have been the best thing when it came to AI because it was hamstrung all these companies. And now we are in a true arms race because there's actually some competition out of China. It may jumpstart everything. These companies may even go crazy.
I think that's actually the right take, to be honest. Out of all the takes I've heard, I think that's the right take.
I mean, I didn't want to say this. I don't like getting political about stuff, but that should be what people are thinking right now is that the new EO from Trump is putting AI at the forefront, okay? The EO from Biden did not. There's nothing political about that. Those are just facts. China just gave us some real competition. Now it's on the American companies to battle back, and I don't think they can do it without more power, and they're only getting more power from Nvidia. So I think this may actually be bullish for everything, and that would be a buy the dip because of that. Because there's no way that the U.S. is going to let China win this. There's just no way.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of the Sputnik moment, right?
Yes.
For AI,
If you believe in the moon landing, then, it's a race to the moon between Russia and the U.S.
Wait, you don't believe in the moon landing, Steve?
I'm just saying, there are people that don't.
Are you one of those people?
I'm just saying.
Yo, who
people that
believes
don't.
we got on the moon? Put it in the chat. Let me do a poll right here. Hold on, I gotta do a poll. Who believes we got on the moon? Because I found out some of my friends this weekend don't believe in that. They don't believe in that. Moon landing real? Yes or no?
Oh, this is going to be interesting. I'm actually interested to see what everybody says.
Okay, let's see. I think majority of them are going to say yes. That's my belief. I'm going to give it a couple minutes to see what people think. Someone said the moon doesn't exist. Oh my gosh.
What is it? Overwhelming no?
It is at a 430 votes, 67% say yes.
Okay. Fair amount of doubters right there. So once again, if you believe the moon landing is real, then we're in an arms race, U.S.-China. Same way that they were in a race to get to the moon, U.S.-Russia.
All right, there you go.
So maybe this is exactly what we needed.
I definitely think we needed a wake-up call. And it definitely feels like this is...
I just don't like how fragile the market was on one headline. I mean, earnings are great. Revenue is real. This isn't a bubble. Earnings are real. Earnings growth is real.
Yeah.
I can understand down 200 or 300 points on the NASDAQ. But 700 points on a headline like this, I don't know. To me, I don't think the market's that fragile.
Well, see, dude, this has been my thing the whole day. I have been bullish going into the year. Out of all the data we got, Trump inauguration, executive order, CPI, you put it all together, new tenants rents coming down, it maintains the bullish thesis. And so then I see a day like this, and I'm like, I'm not going bearish. I'm just confused how this headline is the reason why the market's collapsing Nvidia stock by 20%. And then you kind of just got to be humble enough to be like, well, maybe we needed a really tough day because that's what happens in the market.
Algorithms.
Yeah.
Stop losses. How many people probably bought it at 125 and threw a stop loss of 120? Or bought it at 130 and threw a stop loss of 127? I mean, those are real scenarios.
That's fair. That is very fair.
I mean, those are very real scenarios. And how many people put orders in that when they make 15% to sell also? So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
The last thing I am is worried about it.
All right. We'll call you on Wednesday after the earnings and get your take on it.
All right. I will talk to you later tonight.
All right. Talk to you later, Steve. Thank you. Appreciate it. Later. Well, Nvidia's up 2% after hours. Oracle's up 2%. A lot of tech is actually moving green. Palantir's up. Bitcoin's up. Oklow's up 5%. Microsoft's up a little bit. Slight recovery, but nonetheless, a little bit of a recovery. Dude, well, look at you see this on Webull? They just said Nvidia's up 65% after hours. Things glitching like crazy, bro. Probably have a bunch of orders also coming in after hours as well. All right. Well, look, again, here's my take. I just want to re-articulate my take for everyone that still might be confused in my opinion. My opinion on the broader markets right now is very bullish, like especially based on the macro data we got last week, CPI, new tenants rents, like very bullish. The housing data we're seeing, we beat on housing today by 200,000 new houses that were started, like incredibly bullish on that. I think inflation's falling off a cliff, and I think we're going to get 3 to 4 cuts this year, not 1 to 2 cuts. I definitely don't think we're getting a hike. I think the broader hesitation I had today was I did not expect Nvidia to be put in this quagmire of literally being re-rated as a company to an extent, losing a fifth of its market capitalization, because that hasn't happened in over 5 years. And I think that has to spook you a little bit, right? Just to like, or maybe spook's not the right word, wake you up, give you some jitters of like, oh, this is fragile. Like this thesis is fragile. The bull market thesis, I think, is intact, but part of the bull market thesis is Nvidia, as Steve was saying. And as much as we want to assume the market can go higher without Nvidia, there may be a world where Nvidia takes the market down just on that AI sentiment going away. My gut reaction after everything I researched today, all the quotes I read, all the different tweets from these Stanford PhDs that I read today, is that I think we need more compute. I think more compute is going to require more GPUs. More GPUs means we're going to have a lot more data centers. So all this energy infrastructure that's selling off 30%, those are probably dips that get bought. And at the end of the day, you either believe Nvidia is not going to grow at the estimates that Wall Street thinks it can grow at, which is at least $5 of EPS in 2025, which even if you put a 30 PE on that, the stock's at 150, or you think this is the dumbest dip ever. And I kind of think this is the dumbest dip ever. And that's why I bought the dip. And tomorrow, let's see how the market internalizes it. I don't think Zucks is taking back his commitment. I don't think Nadella is taking back their commitment. I think Nadella is a smart guy. And if he says, hey, the paradox that entails more of something is important if there's more demand for it. And that's the only thing he tweeted today. Like, as that's the sort of Javon's paradox. That's what he wanted the world to know about today. That tweet was to Wall Street. It was not to you and me. That tweet was a tweet to Wall Street. Then I think that's a very obvious tell sign that he is not going to stop spending as much as he's spending. And if he's not going to stop spending, Zucks is not going to stop spending. Sundar and Jassy are not going to stop spending. And this should become a nothing burger over the next few weeks. That is my final thesis on NVIDIA. So let's do a final poll right here on the chat on what you guys think right here. Question is, do you think this NVIDIA dip will be a nothing burger? That is the question. Yes or no? Assume a couple months from now, do you think this NVIDIA dip will be a nothing burger? That's it. That's it for today. No jitters. I'm on too many antidepressants. Oh my gosh, dude. And again, it's not about the money either, because it's not like I have hundreds of thousands of shares in this company. I mean, a lot of you guys have a lot more shares in NVIDIA than me. I'm just, as a market participant, it gets you thinking, dude. As someone who just cares about markets, who studies the market, who is all day obsessed with markets, like, this is one of those things you haven't seen in a long time. A company of NVIDIA's magnitude stripped away of $600 billion in market cap in a day. Like, that doesn't happen often. So when that happens, when it happens, it definitely shakes you a little bit. And you start trying to get as much data as possible on what's happening. 84% of you think it's going to be a nothing burger. 84% think it's going to be a nothing burger. Are we cutting them? We are definitely not cutting in January. If you look at the probabilities on the rate cuts, I think the earliest we get a cut is probably May. I would love for it to be March, but I still think March is aggressive. But January, we have a 97.3% chance of not cutting, which in 2 days we're going to find out. We're likely not going to cut. And then in March, we have a 31% chance of cutting. In May, we have a 49% chance of cutting. So the May probabilities actually went higher, I think, on Friday for the first time in January. So I would say May is when we get the cut. March, I think, is a little aggressive. We need some more CPI data to come in nicely. But by May, that's about 5 months into the year, it should be time for a cut, if inflation is coming down the way we think it's coming down. But we're definitely not getting a cut on Wednesday. That's probably not going to happen. All right, that is it. 84% of you think it's a nothing burger. I agree as well. That is my take, and we will find out over the next couple of days how the market interprets this. Tomorrow will be a big day. This will be the second day after one of the largest days ever in NVIDIA's decline. And we'll get to see how the market interprets it going into tomorrow and what that means for all the hyperscalers as well. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining, enjoying the value on the open and the close. Hopefully you guys are getting value out of it. I know a lot of people are new here. My name is Amit. I do a market open every single day in the morning, 8:45 a.m. and then in the afternoon, 3:45. So if you're new here, hopefully you get to enjoy being part of the community and being part of the show every single day. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Actually, no, later tonight, Robinhood Weekly. We still got Hood Weekly. So 9:30, if you care about Robinhood at all, we do a dedicated podcast to Robinhood. We'll be live tonight. And yeah, after that, I'll see you guys tomorrow on the market open. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good one. Good night.